Now, I'm sure many of us have memories of poring over a newspaper, cup of coffee in hand. Over the years, though, we of course moved to a digital era. Traditional newspaper sales have declined, and year on year, a number of papers have seen quite as much as a 30% drop in readers. However, some have seen an increase. The Cape Argus, for instance, has seen a 24% improvement in circulation. And for more on this, though, to understand and get some clarity and context, we're joined by Media Monitoring Africa's William Bird. William, good morning to you. Always a pleasure to have you. Let's talk about it, because indeed we've seen quite a decline not only in newspapers but magazines and print in general. But just focusing on newspapers, what would you attribute this decline to?
Mostly just due to the increased digitization of our world. You know, we've got, I think it's a 64% internet penetration rate, which means there's still a hell of a lot of people without internet. So there's still a lot of people that are needing to read newspapers, but there's less and less of them. But the decline generally is largely due to the fact that people are going digital. So it's a lot. There's no longer as many street vendors on corners selling newspapers. They're not just quite as abundant as they were, and the variety of newspapers is also decreasing. Of course, in some of the small areas and smaller communities, people still rely very heavily, as they should, I think, on their local print newspapers. So I think we're in that difficult period still where there are not enough people that have ongoing, permanent and reliable access and affordable access to the internet, and then those that are trying to read newspapers. So those of us that are able to consume our news through digital means are still not actually in the majority.
Yeah. When we look at the different varieties or the types of newspapers, your weeklies, your dailies, your weekend papers, or even free newspapers, are we seeing a decline across the board, or in comparison to each, some are showing a bit of an improvement?
So I don't have the figures in front of me now, but I think that some of them we are seeing a little bit of improvement. But these things, they go up and down depending on when the numbers are as small as they are now, relatively speaking. Any kind of improvement there, if it's a few thousand, is going to be something fairly significant. So I think that, again, the general trend is sadly downward. But I think that there is, we will find that time and that place where, as you've seen in other countries around the world that have 100% internet penetration, that there will be certain print media that'll survive, that'll do something, that'll either speak to a niche or they'll offer something that people actually need. So in the UK and on the underground, there's a particular free newspaper that gets read very, very widely still, and that's because you're on the underground and it's a lot easier to just sit there and pick that up if you want to read that instead of consuming your digital device. So I think that we are going to find that, but at the moment the trend still continues to be very negative towards print media. But again, not that unexpected. What we do need to see is significant increased investment into our quality journalism for our digital media, because if we don't see that, then we're going to have a real problem for our democracy. Yeah,
and we've seen that migration from different newspapers and different names moving to online, people consuming it. There's still that paywall, and Gareth and I were just talking off air that it seems some people are willing to pay, some are not willing to pay for that content. But what would you attribute that non-payment to? Because if you were able to pay a print newspaper, why would consumers of news not want to pay for a subscription online?
Well, I think there are a number of reasons. Historically, I guess it's a funny term to use in relation to the internet. It's been, people have expected their news for free, and that was the kind of assumed model initially. Yeah. And what you've got to do is get people to be happy to pay something for something that they were previously getting for free, which means you've then got to be offering them something that they're willing to pay, give away their hard-earned cash in order to say, well, if I can get this for free, why would I want to pay X or Y or Z medium just to get the same kind of thing? So you'll see that some of the media are going for like a freemium model, but where you can get a certain number of free articles and then you pay for the ones, and then they'll put like some of their best writers or some of their big stories into those kinds of particular areas. And then again, you've got success stories like Daily Maverick where they're not charging, but then they've got a membership kind of a model. So you will see a lot of these different kind of models until something starts to shift. But one of the reasons I think it's hard is that we still haven't worked out a really good good pay mechanism. You know, it was very easy if you walked up to your to the guy on the street and you greeted your newspaper vendor and you bought your Daily Sun and your Sowetan and your Business Day and all of those things. You just had your cash. It was easy. You just changed it over. To do that for a single edition for any of these things, you know, you've got to go through the whole process, your name, your email, blah, 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 blah. Then you've got to check it, confirm it. It's still a very messy and untidy kind of a process. And I guess they haven't just found a model for that yet that'll actually make it smooth and easy, that you go, ooh, there's an article I want to read.
Absolutely.
Click and you'll be able to pay for it instantly and be able to read it, and it'll cost you, R1 or something to read that particular story. So I think until we find a model like that, we're always going to struggle with those. And then you find ones that are very successful, like the FT and the internationally. They charge their subscribers a lot of money. So does the New York Times, and still they generally haven't been making a lot of money in terms of the way that they used to make money for print. And because of that, so the owners of the newspapers haven't been making money and subscribers haven't. But also we're in an incredibly difficult economic environment at the moment. So many people are unemployed. So you'd rather get it for free than have to pay.
Absolutely. Well, we have to leave it there. And I appreciate you giving us this clarity and context from Media Monitoring Africa, William Bird. And this is just about the decline, because we're seeing there that report coming out showing, different quarters, that decline in print newspaper, even though some have been making quite a bit of small gains and increases and improvements, but still yet that steady decline in print, particularly newspapers, is still seen.